Hello Art 1 students. So today I'm just going to do a quick demo on some of the outlining steps for the line and color option. Because if you remember, we had talked previously about how some of you may end up with some kind of sketchy lines or sort of extraneous lines from where you are using your pencil to figure out where exactly the line should be. So this video is going to show taking the lines from looking like this and this, so that we are using an ultra fine tip black Sharpie to clean those lines up and make them very smooth and very neat, so that we are ready for the coloring step once color schemes have been discussed a little bit more. Now this step, the outlining step, is very important also because what it will do is help enhance and create the depth that you see in sort of the outer edges of those columns, because the pen is inherently just going to be a little bit thicker than the pencil that you used originally. So as you go to and from the same point, as you repeat that motion that you did with the pencil, your black areas along the edges are going to get a little bit more dense, a little bit more solid, so that they really create even more of a shadow, as you can see, in between those areas. So it is a bit of a tedious process, and you do want to go slowly enough so that you can be careful with it, but not so slowly that you start to overthink the lines. It is, of course, best if you can to get each line done in one fell swoop, because that will just make it nicer and neater. And of course, the more you practice, the better you will get at this. You probably will not start out at a point at which you are satisfied. The biggest thing is to just remember to be patient with it. And if you do make a mistake, if you do go outside the line or have a bit of an edge of your pen line showing, it's okay. We can definitely still work back into that and fix it. Because as you can see, I have some areas already where my ultra fine tip Sharpie is kind of just going out because of where I'm starting with the pen, or where I'm finishing on the other end. And that's perfectly fine, because what you can do is once you get all of your Sharpie outline on here, I'll show you guys how you can actually fill in some of those spaces a little bit more, or make some of your lines a little bit thicker. So that then those little mistakes and sort of inconsistencies actually end up becoming part of the project, and will actually possibly even enhance those shadows a little bit more. Now, if you don't have an ultra fine tip Sharpie, a regular fine tip will work as well. I have had students use the regular Sharpies that are just, your standard everyday Sharpie. For me, I don't like them as much because they make the lines a little bit too thick, but they do definitely work. So really, any type of black, pretty fine tip pen or marker that you have access to is probably going to be the best bet for this. Don't go out and buy a special marker. Now, as I get to some of these larger curves, it's going to be harder. So if you need to pick your pen up, like I just did here, it's fine. It will get hidden in the pattern, so long as you are careful about it. So as you can see on both of these, I went off of my pencil line a little bit, but I'm not going to try to go back to the pencil line. What I'm going to do is just let where my pen goes become my new line. So one thing that can help is while you're working, if you're above your paper, try not to have your elbow down. Try to have your elbow off the table, because what that's going to do is give you a bit better range of motion with your wrist. If you have your elbow down on the table, then that wrist movement is not going to be quite as natural. And as I had mentioned before, turn the page however many times you need. Really think about figuring out which direction is the easiest one for you to make your curves as nice and consistent as you can. So as you can see in here, some of those areas become very dark and very little. You almost can't even tell that it is one of the types of bands that we'll be adding the shading to. That's perfectly fine. Do not try to make it bigger. Just let it stay as dark as it's going to be. So I'm going to go into this next section here because it goes right alongside this line, and I want you guys to see how some of those edges will already get a little bit covered up as you add other outlines. So that little discrepancy that I had there is already gone now, simply because of the overlap. And now both of those are as well, simply because of overlapping. So once again, you can see there's no real right or wrong way to turn your page or hold the paper. What you want to do is figure out what's going to work best for you and figure out how to maintain that consistency throughout your overlapping and your layering up and tracing with your ultra fine tip Sharpie. So you can start to see the spaces in between where the black area is getting thicker or starting to already look a little bit like shadows. And that's only going to continue to happen as we continue to add those outlines. So as you can see, my lines are a little bit changed in here. You can see where the ultra fine tip Sharpie goes off of them a little bit. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to keep going, because before I add any of my color scheme, I'm going to be erasing any of those extra pencil lines anyway. So I know it's not going to be a problem. So there's another shape done, or another blob, I should say. So then, obviously, I would continue finishing this out. I would get all of those outlines done, all of the pen portion of the project completed, and then I would go in with an eraser and just erase all those extra pencil lines before I start into any of the shading. So the next video that I do for this particular project, the lines will all be completed and we will be looking specifically at the shading steps. Because remember, Black Day students, you guys should be ready to start on your shading by Monday. Virtual students, you should be ready by Monday as well. And then Gold Day students, we will start adding color on Wednesday when you guys come back.